players such as Coleman Hawkins on tenor or David Sanborn on the alto, you'll hear two very different types of vibrato. Some people think it's easy to do vibrato. What they're actually doing is the wrong sort. Now, it's very difficult to say what's right and wrong in saxophone technique, but what is easy is to do a kind of vibration in your throat, and it sounds like this, which sounds very corny, and it's what a lot of players do when they start off and think they can play vibrato. It's completely uncontrolled. What we need to do is to be able to control this vibrato. The way we do this is by that very slow bending exercise where we think of the note like a wave. What we're doing is a very, very slowed down vibrato. Think of it like this wave, very, very slow. And over a period of weeks, months or years even, gradually speed it up. It's something that won't happen overnight. It's rather similar to the way drummers will practice a roll. They don't get their sticks and suddenly go da-da-da-da-da. They will go da-da-ma, ma, da-da, ma, ma. Very slow, and then gradually speed it up so that their roll is even and constant. It's the same with our vibrato. So this exercise could take you a long time, but it's worth it in the end. Now, we're going to try a tune where we can bend some notes in it. Before we do this, I'm going to have to show you a new note which is in this tune. This is the note of E flat. Now, to play the E flat, we use our D fingering, that is the 3 fingers of the left hand, the first 3 fingers of the right hand, and the little finger of the right hand is going to be playing this key just here. See that? Side key? That's the E flat. Now, this note isn't in the key signature of this tune, but don't worry, we'll show you the note when it comes along. This is called an accidental. Bending notes shouldn't be overdone because it can become very annoying instead of interesting. In this lesson, we're going to learn a few more notes, a little bit of theory, some scales, and some arpeggios. Here's the first note. It's the B flat. Now, to play the B flat, we need the 2 fingers of our left hand. Remember, same as we're playing the A. Then add this side key here with the side of your first finger of the right hand. There's a group of 3 side keys down the right hand side of the saxophone. It's the bottom one we're interested in here. The A fingering plus that side key there. This is the B flat. In the lower register, in the upper register. Now, B flat is an interesting note because there are 2 alternative fingerings, which I'll show you. You won't need them all at first, but I'll show you them now. Remember, we've got this little button here on the left hand. This is the B flat button, and we can play the B flat using just the 1 finger, but two buttons. This is the first finger of the left hand playing the first button, which is the B button, and then the little button, the B flat, together. Same as the other fingering I just showed you. Another fingering for B flat, which I don't use very often, but it's still very useful in certain circumstances, is this one. Using your B key, the left hand, without playing any other notes of the left hand, you play the first finger of the right hand or the second finger of the right hand. This is it. Or just for now, we're mainly going to be concentrating on the first one I showed you, which was the A fingering, adding this lower side key. We can now play a scale of G minor. This is a G harmonic minor scale. There are two types of minors, the harmonic and the melodic. For now, we're going to concentrate on the harmonic. To play this scale, we'll need the notes G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, which I showed you in the last lesson, F sharp, and top G again. Starts on the lower G. Now don't try and play that scale as fast as I played it just then to begin with. Play it in your own pace, nice and slowly and evenly. Try playing it as well, tonguing, legato, any combinations of those. Did you notice the key signature then? We had two flats, the B flat and the E flat. What this means is that every time there's a note B or E on the music, they're played flattened as a B flat or an E flat, unless marked otherwise with what we call an accidental. An accidental is a sign that can apply to any note. In this case, we had one on the note F. What we had was an accidental sharpening the F. It could have been on any note, could be flattening a note if it's natural, or sharpening a note if it's a natural. Could be making a sharp or a flat natural. It can apply to any note you want. I'm going to now show you the note G sharp. For this, we need the G fingering. We add the little finger of the left hand onto this key here. Can you see that? G, G sharp. This can also be called A flat. An A, when you flatten it, sounds very similar to a G when you sharpen it. The next one I'm going to show you is the C sharp or D flat. To play this, we don't need any fingers at all. Easy, isn't it? That was the C sharp or D flat. That is the top note of the lower register. Another very good thing to practice changing between the registers is to practice your C sharp to D. Now that we know these new notes, there are several more scales we can play. We've already covered the scale of G, so I'm going to show you some more ones which are F and A. Scale of F has one flat in it, that's a B flat. So the notes are F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E and F again. Here's a scale of A. This one has three sharps in it, C sharp, F sharp and G sharp. The notes are A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp and A. The scale of C, I've already shown you half of it. That was the C, D, E, F, G. You can learn this one for yourself, the rest of it. Let's carry on up to the top C. We're now going to do some minor scales. Firstly, D minor. This is starting on the low D. We have D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C sharp, and then D in the upper register. The scale of A minor has A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, and A. There are no sharps or flats in the key signature, but there is a G sharp, which is shown by what we call an accidental when you come to it. We're now going to learn some arpeggios. Arpeggios are going to become very useful in the next lesson, which is rock and roll and blues. This is a very good exercise for practicing your technique as well. Basically, an arpeggio is the first note, third note and fifth note of each scale. We miss out the second and fourth. For instance, in the key of G, we'd play the G, which is the first note, miss out the A, which is the second note, and play the B, which is the third note. Miss out the C, the fourth note, and play the D. So it goes like this. That's G, B, D, B, G. Again. An arpeggio on F major would be F, miss out the G, play the A, miss out the B flat, and play the C. So that's F, A, C, and back down again, A and F. I'd like you to work out for yourself the arpeggios on C and A. You know the scales, miss out the second and fourth notes. On the minor arpeggios, the same thing applies. You play the first note, the third note, and the fifth note of the scale. So on the G, we'd play G, B flat, and D, missing out the A and the C. You can work out for yourself the minor arpeggios on D minor and A minor now that you know the scales. One more scale I'm going to teach you is totally different to the majors and minors. This is called the chromatic scale. This scale uses every note available to us in Western music, all the sharps and flats, every note there is. It's quite tricky, so what we're going to do is break our rule about playing the scales evenly and slowly, because this is going to take you a long time to work out the fingerings, going from one note to the next one in steps of what we call a semitone. That is the smallest interval in music that we have. The first semitone is between G to G sharp or A flat, to A sharp or B flat, to B, to C sharp or D flat, to D sharp or E flat, E, F sharp or G flat, and then G. We're going to start this scale on the note G, go right up to the top C, back down to the bottom D, and then back up to G. You can start this scale, however, on whatever note you want, it doesn't matter. Now you may have to stop to breathe somewhere, so don't worry too much about playing it in even tempo. Now that we've learnt all those scales and arpeggios, which I'm sure is going to take quite a long time to get used to, we're going to next look at some blues and rock and roll tunes. The blues is something that can't be taught. However, you can probably learn it. If you listen to some of the great rhythm and blues and rock and roll players, such as Earl Bostic, who plays alto, Lee Allen, King Curtis, great tenor players, some of these players can say as much with one note as a lot of flash technical players say with 1,000. Now the important thing here is tone and flexibility. Remember the long note exercise we had where we drop the pitch gradually and then bring it back up like a wave? Let's try that again. We're now going to look at a 12-bar blues chord sequence in the key of G. Now this is a very useful thing to look at because we'll get an idea of how we improvise on a chord sequence. The 12-bar blues chord sequence has been used in many different kinds of music: rhythm and blues, rock and roll, gospel, country and western, and modern pop music. It's also a good starting point for learning to improvise jazz. Although there are only 3 chords in this 12-bar blues, that's G, C and D, and usually there are a lot more chords in jazz, it's very good to start at the beginning so we can train our ears to listen to the chord changes. In this case, we're going to play a tune that's based on what the bass player is playing, that is the bass line. This is a very common bass line, I'm sure you'll recognise it. We're going to adapt it slightly so that we can breathe. First of all, we're going to play quarter notes. That's on the first time round, called the first chorus. The second time round, that is the second chorus, we're going to play 8 notes. This will give it a boogie-woogie flavour. The third time, I'm not going to play. You can play it for yourself, either the quarter notes or the 8th notes. Now, before we get on to this, remember the arpeggios we learnt in the last lesson? G, that was the first note, the third note and the 5th note of G. G, B, D, B, G. We're going to develop that a bit for the first chord and just add the 6th note and the 7th note of the G scale, which would normally be F sharp, except because this is the blues, we can take a few liberties and we're going to make that an F natural. This is called a blues note because we've flattened the note instead of playing the note that's normally in the major scale. So this is the first bit. Sound familiar? The next chord in the sequence is C. So we do the same thing. We take the arpeggio of C, we play the first, the third and the 5th notes. That's the C, the E and the G. Then we're going to add the 6th and the flat and 7th. That's the A and the B flat. The third chord in this is the D chord, where we're going to use the D arpeggio, which I didn't show you, but you can work it out for yourself. Based on the D scale, we use the D, which is the first note, the F sharp, which is the third, the A, which is the fifth, then the B, the sixth, and the C, which is the seventh note, but flattened one. So instead of a C sharp, it's a C natural. So we'll use those three patterns for the first chorus. Second chorus, we're going to play eighth notes, which means they'll sound like this. And so on. Okay, you ready? Here comes the count. One chord because it's based on the first note of the scale. The next chord is the C chord. Here it is, we call it the 4 chord. It's based on C, the fourth note of the G scale. The next chord is D. Here it comes now. We call this the 5 chord. It's based on the fifth note of the scale of G. Okay, now we can transpose that chord sequence into whatever key we want to play the blues in. If we're playing it in C, we'll use the chords that are based on the first, fourth and fifth notes of the C scale. So for instance, whereas in G we played the chords G, which is the first, C, which is the fourth, and D, which is the fifth note of the scale. In C we'd be playing C, which is the first note, F, which is the fourth note of the scale, and G, which is the fifth note of the scale. Changing the key of a tune is called transposing. The same structure applies to whatever key we're in. It's always chord 1, chord 4 and chord 5. The next thing I'm going to show you about playing the blues is what we call the saxophone growl. You've probably heard players with a really rough tone. This is quite common in rock and roll. Some people find this easy, some people find it difficult. There's no real secret to it. All you do is hum or growl in your throat while you're playing. You don't have to hum the same note that you're playing. You'll find out by trial and error how this hum affects the note you're playing. What I was doing in my throat then would sound something like this. Pretty horrible, isn't it? But don't worry. No one's going to hear it. They're not going to turn around and think what a nerd you are because you're playing the saxophone at the same time and that's much louder. Plus, if there's a band playing, which there usually is, that will be a lot louder as well. The saxophone growl then sounds a bit like this. Just on the end of that last lick I did, you might have noticed I played some notes going downwards. We call this a fall. Now, the way to do this is to play the chromatic scale and gradually get quieter. It's a bit of a difficult thing to explain. It's very difficult to practice. You'll just have to listen to it, listen to players doing it and try and work out how you gradually get quieter while fingering the chromatic scale downwards. Here it is again on the note A. A good example of this you'll hear if you listen to the Pink Panther theme by Henry Mancini. Right at the end, the whole band do that for quite a long time. As I said before, in the blues we can sometimes take liberties with notes of the scale. For instance, we flattened the seventh note of the G scale then. Instead of playing an F sharp, we played an F natural. In the blues, we often flatten some of the notes, either the third, the fifth, or the seventh. Now you don't have to do this, but do it some of the time, and at other times don't flatten them. In effect, it's like playing a minor at the same time as playing in a major key. Usually the band will play in a major key. You'll be playing notes that apply to both major and minor. Gives it a kind of ambiguous feel, but it is basically in G major. There are other kinds of blues which are all in a minor, in which case the band will be playing in the minor and you're playing in the minor as well. It won't work the other way around, where the band plays in the minor and you can play in a major. It sounds horrible. The next tune we're going to do is going to be using quite a lot of blues notes, the flattened notes. This is in the key of G again. We'll be using the flattened third. So instead of B, we're playing B flat. Now remember, we can use alternate fingerings for the B flat. We can either use the A with the side key here, or we can use the B flat button key, where our first finger of the left hand is holding down the B key and the little button key at the same time. In this tune, we're also going to introduce you to staccato. Now what that means is you play the note very short. In fact, the proper way of playing staccato is to play it exactly half the length. This is what you would be taught in classical music. In this case, we don't have to be quite so precise. Staccato is indicated in written music by a dot above or below the note, not to be confused with a dot after the note, which means you play the note half as long again. Pay special attention to this tune, dynamics. Remember, getting louder and getting quieter, that's what we're going to do in one part of this tune. And watch out, there are some accidentals in it, because that shows you that there are notes which aren't in the key signature. These are the blues notes. Okay, here comes the count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think you can work out for yourself which is the best of the B flat fingerings to use in which part of that tune. There's a very good example there of slurring notes in groups of two. The bit just at the end that went. Now, this brings us to another point. When we're playing B to C and back to B again, we can use an alternative fingering for the C, which is much easier. What we do is play the B as normal with our first finger of the left hand. Now the fingering for the C is to just then with the side of your right hand, the side of your right hand finger, to play the second of this group of three side keys. Like that. B, C, B. We're now going to play another blues tune. This one has a different feel. It's a sleazy kind of feel, this one. And it's in 12/8 time, which we haven't done yet. We've done 4/4 and we've talked about 3/4. Well, this one's in 12/8. There are 4 beats in the bar still, but this is slightly different because each beat is divided into 3. This is called triple time. We can count it 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Now we're going to show you the music. This may be getting quite advanced for you now. If you're having trouble reading the music, learn the tune by ear. The tune starts on the 4th beat of the count.